All right, Tina, ready when you are. Good evening, everyone. It is Wednesday, April 3rd, 2024, and we're here at the Jocelyn Recreation Center for our Recreation Advisory Board meeting. Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Chairman Simon.
Present.
Vice Chair Sanchez.
Present.
Councilwoman Vargas. Present. Jenna Lafayette. Present. Kenneth Phillips.
Present.
We have 5 present. We have a quorum.
Great. I'm glad everybody is here. We're in full force tonight. I think for at least a little bit of the meeting. I know some folks have to step out for some things at certain points, but hope everybody had a good holiday weekend, no matter what you're celebrating. As part of our priorities, what we've been talking about, this is the second meeting now that we've had at different recreation centers. The first one was at the West End Rec Center. Director Stanley, thank you for joining us tonight. We really appreciate you taking the time. We know they're very busy down there. There are a lot of kids in the building. Director Stanley, we had the opportunity for a few of us to give a tour of the center. And so, as always, we are incredibly grateful to you and your staff for the work that you do. And we have been meeting as a board since October of this year. This was a board that had not met in quite some time. So one of the things that we talked about was really not just meeting in City Hall, but really getting out to the rec centers, really seeing what's going on, talking to the directors, the staff that works there, and really just get a good sense as to the types of things that are being offered. So thank you for leading us on that tour. We appreciate Director Grace. Always great to have you here. Appreciate you making the time. Our agenda tonight is that as we're doing with all of these meetings where we're doing them in the rec centers, we will start off with a brief presentation from Director Stanley and Director Grace about the programming and the work that's going on here in the rec center. And then we will have a follow-up discussion to our previous discussion on the FY25 proposed budget. I know we've all had some time to kind of think about that now. We laid out some priorities in the past. I did have a chance to speak with the mayor and Director Grace and really express some of the interests that we talked about, and also want to continue to talk about that. The mayor's budget address is scheduled for April 17th at City Hall. I know I'll be attending that, and I invite everybody here to attend that as well. I'm hopeful, obviously, that the rec department will be a nice part of his budget address and speech, based on some of the feedback that we've given him and some of the deliverables that we think we can accomplish, and the investments that we know that we need. So, and then lastly, we will do some updates on the basketball season, which closed out officially several weeks ago. Director Grace, 2 weeks ago. And also get some updates on the soccer league, which is one of the things that we've been talking about, that is starting up on April 13th, I believe, in the next week, somewhere around there. And then just some additional programming. Also want to kind of talk briefly about our next meeting and some of the things that we might want to accomplish. I have some ideas around that. And then as always, we will leave some time for public comment if folks would like to address the audience. We are going to try to keep remarks to be respectful of everybody's time, to about 3 minutes or so per person. And I think that is our agenda for the night. So we will start it off. Director Stanley, thank you again for having us. It was a great conversation we had on the tour. As always, every time I've come into this building, it's been active and vibrant and lots of happy kids around. We really appreciate all the work that you and your staff do on a daily basis. And so we'll open it up to you to give us a brief presentation on the center, sort of its history, some of the programming that you work on. And thank you very much for taking the time.
Thank you for coming and having a meeting here. I guess the first thing I want to say, and I'm not I don't kiss up to people, but I honestly can say, it took us a while because all of the directors who've been here for years, you get stuck in the tracks. And since he's Director Grace, he's provided us with more things that we're capable of doing, more programming. And he's not shy about coming and telling you what you need to do better. And so I think we're on a trajectory that's gonna be better for the future. But obviously, when change comes, people either get afraid of it, pissed off, or they leave. I'm not leaving.
That's good, we need you, so.
So some of the programming that we have, because most kids that come into most of the recs, and you come and see it before, it's basketball, basketball, basketball.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna enter for 1 second. The presentation is here, everybody, that you have it. We don't have a board up or anything. Is anybody missing one?
Yeah,
Are there any additional ones that we have for members of the public? You can also, okay.
And I can give it.
Oh, yeah. Before we do start, I will entertain a motion to enter this presentation from Director Stanley and Director Grace into the record.
so
Seconded by Councilman Vargas. All in favor? All opposed? Ayes have it. Sorry about that. Director. Yeah.
So basically what I'm gonna do is just tell you the things that we did. And then all of you will see the layout of the building. We have a community room, computer lab is in that area. And then I took some of you out to see the back with the water park. There's a soccer field that's out there. We watch it when we're not in summer, but in summer, a lot of programming goes on out there. That is pretty amazing, and for the ages that we work with, for the number of people that come. Some of us aren't bilingual, but it's very bilingual out there during the summer. And during, and more people are starting to gather around soccer, which is my favorite sport, which I played in college and got paid to play it after college. So I'm happy about that. So some of the things besides the community room is a multi-purpose room that's inside the building. It also has a food station in there because the rec department gives out a lot of food to families that need it and kids that come in here. So there's still hunger in America, like everyone knows. And so we're a part of helping to try to deal with that. But we also have arts and crafts programs in there. We have outside groups that come in and use it. We also have outside groups that come in and use the rec gym itself. And that's been pretty successful for a long time, but it's more accountable now in this era. Some things used to be a little bit too relaxed. And so it's a pleasure having that and a little bit more direction. The computer lab, we had a grant that was given that the previous city councilor and state rep helped to get funds, and that's how we got all those computers. And that's been a boom because kids that don't have them at home can come here and use them. You definitely have to monitor them, but nonetheless, that's a godsend in a lot of ways because not everybody wants to play sports. And then obviously I showed some of you that outside. That's a partnership with everything that gets done out there is a partnership between the rec department and the stuff that we do, but also the parks and other fields we have to come in and upkeep. And so, and that's been going well since I got here. And then right now with our gymnasium, we have, because you age out at 14 or 15, but there are people out in the community that don't have anything to do. And so that now we've opened that up to let older kids come in after hours to play basketball and keep them up. And that's been going pretty well for some time. And then I'll just go through quickly some of the things that we do here. And then some of the needs that we still have. We have students that come in to help from some of the colleges. It's been slow this year as far as them coming, but Brown University, Rick and PC used to have people that would come in. Some of those kids obviously have aged out, and so we have to try to reach out again. But more often than not, it was something that schools were trying to have, the colleges were trying to help. I don't want to go on, but so,
No, this is all very helpful. It
okay.
was a great presentation, so please do continue, yeah.
All right, so, some of the other things that we do that the kids love is dodgeball, 3-on-3 basketball, basketball skills and drills, and most of those are supervised by kids, by youth who grew up coming to this rec, and now we've hired them, and they have a closer relationship and understanding, and so especially around the basketball stuff, and since Director Grace came, we've also been able to have older kids come in later at night, keep them off the street and to try to stay in shape. We have a computer lab, home workout, e-play, fun and games, building club. We've also at one point had a girls club, but the girls, I'll just be blunt. Most of the young girls that come here come looking for young boys. And so what we try to do is get them interested in what they're interested in other than boys. And to try to find out what we can do to influence them to think more about their lives instead of somebody else's life. And so I try to stay out of that. But we have staff, Assistant Director Cecile Vega, who's the right hand to almost a lot of the things that go on here. And she inspires me as well. She's awesome. Art Love, Curb Appeal, which means that we try to get kids outside to clean up trash, plant things, whatever. And in the past, our elected officials have helped us with stuff, with the materials that we want to put out. And I didn't say that. We go back 20 years when I was a community organizer. And so I don't want to drone on, but I think that's it. Unless
Yeah, I just hit up the scene,
Okay, I'm all set.
And before you
You
do,
can ask
Director, so
questions.
just for one of the things that we are talking about, obviously, is expansion of programming, and we really, we have heard from several directors and members of the community, obviously, around programming for girls' sports or girls' activities. Do you have are there girls' basketball teams that are based out of
So
Johnson?
since I came, there was always girls basketball team, but the past couple of years, COVID hurt a lot of things.
Yeah,
People got out of the habit of attending, but also again, so there was no legacy left here to help the younger girls that were coming in, so they didn't have a memory of that or experience with that. And so we have to rebuild that part again, so having, older, younger women coming in and trying to mentor.
so is there a plan for next year? I know this basketball season is kind of come and gone, but for next year, is there a plan to?
That's a question.
Got it, okay.
That's
All right. Yeah, okay. No, thank you for that presentation. It was very helpful. Counselor Sanchez.
Yeah, Chairman, I think before Director, thank you for your presentation. I technically don't have a rec center in my ward, but Ward 6 is 2 streets over, and
Yeah.
a lot of kids from Ward 6 participate, and no one has said anything but positive things about the director and his commitment to the neighborhood kids. And since I don't have a rec center, I try to be supportive as much as possible. My predecessor was my Councilman Correa was very supportive of the Jocelyn Center, so I want to continue that support as much as possible. And everything that he's mentioned in terms of program expansion and some of the needs, especially around girls programming, have been mentioned to me months ago. So something that I'm trying to brainstorm as much as possible.
Yeah.
Around it. I know everyone here is aware of that. It's pretty consistent across the city rec centers. That's about it. I just want to make sure that
Yeah, Councilman, thank you for all your support of this rec center. I know oftentimes we talk about ward boundaries, but really there are no boundaries when it comes to our rec centers and the groups. I mean, children don't see, ward boundaries, right? They don't know what a line is where this council person's ward ends and this council person's ward begins. So I give you guys on the council a lot of credit for working together really to help, the neighborhood rec centers. So thank you and all of the council people who are here for all the work you do for your rec centers. It's extremely important, but
I just want to add one more thing. I've had a lot of different like outside groups looking for rental space, and Elmer has been more than accommodating to make those needs fulfilled. I had a church group looking for Sundays. Sundays are pretty challenging to staff on the rec and any industry. But that group has nothing but positive experiences so far. So thank you directly for
I
that.
also want to make sure that Cecile gets.
Cecile is
Yeah, no, because Cecile, who's downstairs right now, I think shuffling kids around and doing a lot of work as she always does. She said she wanted to be up here with us tonight, but duty calls. And
She's
I know
actually
you,
taking kids over to a basketball clinic to help out.
so I know you guys work as a team and we again appreciate the work that both of you and your entire team do here. Councilwoman Vargas.
Only comment, I want to say only thank you because he's working on Jumbo, but he take care of my kids. And the after school program, and always he's involved in, run the good thing, so I'm glad to see you again.
Great, see you.
Yeah, the kids grow up now.
And so Director Stanley and Director Grace, we talked about this a little bit during the tour, but I think now that we're all together as a group, can you explain, I'm not sure who would be best to do it, this sort of wing of the building? We're in, for those who are at home, we're in a newer section of the building and has been built as the city's resiliency hub. I believe is what's entitled, but it's connected to the rec center. Could you just talk about that a little bit and the purpose of where we are right now and how it connects to the rec department?
Yeah. Elmer was being modest, but thank you for, the presentation as well. It's not easy to, get up here and speak in front of everybody. So thank you for that. But Elmer is actually involved in the planning team for the resilience strategy that's going to be at the Jocelyn Recreation Center. And so when we're talking about resilience, it's the cities or the community's resilience to, inclement weather and extreme weather.
As we are experiencing right now.
And how we react to it as a community. So this being the city's first resilience hub connected to a recreation center is in partnership with the Woonasquatucket River Watershed Council, where they'll have an employee here that's going to be managing the hub, and they'll work with the rec department and other agencies to make sure that we're prepared for any extreme weather that could cause the community to be in any type of distress or in need. So what it will do is create the opportunity for programming to make sure that the community understands how to prepare itself for that, but also provide the resources and training in the facility to be able to prepare the community to help themselves. And that's really the purpose. And it comes with a lot of other added benefits. It's kind of like you can do resilience in a few different ways. It's not like one cookie cutter approach. It can be with green energy, solar backup, battery backup, making sure that your building is state of the art and meeting some of the decarbonization goals of the city or state, as well as the programming that's tied to it. So if you've ever been, applying for a job and it has you for forms of ID and you can select from the 3 different columns, that's kind of how resilience strategy works as well. You can qualify by picking out of this column, and not the third or all 3. And it just really measures your overall resilience, right? And it can impact the funding that you can receive to be able to help the community. So that was, really the purpose of doing this. And the Office of Sustainability from the mayor's office is driving that as well. They have a great team that's pushing that. Kevin Croft is an individual that's been working on that since day one. And before that, Elder Gonzalez, who's no longer with the city. The most interesting thing about that or this resilience strategy was it was the first meeting I took when I became the recreation director, like my first official meeting. And they reached out about this, and I just thought it was a good idea, and I thought that's something that we should be doing. And so it's really cool to see that it's going to happen here, specifically in Olneyville, and that was based on the data and evidence that suggested that this would be the community most impacted by a climate emergency. And so really happy to have it here. So that's the basic premise of how we got here and what it's going to do. What's really good about the Resilience Hub is that we actually did write a grant to help support making this, a Resilience Hub. We applied for a grant. It's called CPF, Capital Project Funding, and Joplin was awarded $4.8 million to expand upon the resilience strategy here. So when you guys took the tour downstairs and Elmer showed you some of the lesser known and lesser used parts of the building, those will all be renovated to make sure that the community can access those. So you saw some old bathrooms that will be reactivated.
Right.
A place in the back where it looks like it's a shower / work room and something like that. Can't really
And a
describe it,
mixture of
but
all
it's-
kinds of other things.
yeah, so it'll be revitalized, as well as the fact that we are connected to a school building and understanding the access points and the safety that needs to be considered along with that. So updating, all the doors and the access points, as well as the camera systems, and working with, the city to be able to do that.
What's the
It's all-
timeline on that, Director? When does that work start?
We're starting like kind of in phases because that's always based on budget. But in terms of the camera systems, we're starting to work on that now. I know that went out to bid last week on Thursday, and we're just waiting for vendors to bid on it to get the cameras at least set up, because there's no cameras in this section of the building right now.
Yeah,
And then we're going to expand upon that. And the goal is to not consider this like a separate building, because the Bay Elementary School is connected to it. They use the gym every single day. But we're on 2 different systems, and we're going to be going on the system that they're on so that they can be connected, so that if there is an emergency, they can take advantage of what the Resilience Hub, could supply and utilize, and vice versa. And we can treat this as one campus. It's a very unique campus because Elmer described, we have a school, we have a rec center. The facility is managed by ABM on the school side and managed by public property on the rec side. But we also have a park in the back, which means our parks department is involved. And so we've been meeting and, trying to make sure that we are going to be on the same page and build a more efficient process to manage these facilities. And this being a Resilience Hub, it could mean things like, when we get the funding to get solar panels, they have an excellent roof on their side to be able to provide energy for, the backup in case we lose electricity, et cetera. So this is a really interesting project for the city in general, and moving in the direction of that decarbonization and, the impact that it can have on the community in terms of resilience. So
and the 4.8 million is federal money, or is that
Yes.
state, that's federal dollars?
it's federal money. Oddly enough, like the way it trickles down is from the Biden administration's broadband
Oh, interesting. Okay.
like program that kind of filtered through and got to, so it's administered by the US Treasury through the Rhode Island Department of Administration. So long process.
I think we know a certain Secretary of Commerce who is responsible for that at the federal level. No, that's really helpful. So when, I think for the members of the board here, this is one of those I always call kind of a hybrid rec center. We have 3 different types, as we all know. They're like the standalone rec centers, like the like West End, like Zucolo. Those are just kind of standalone rec centers. Then there are these, which are kind of a hybrid, right? It's like the school, the basketball court, and then some additional space, community space and whatnot. And then there are those that are really just kind of an extension of the school. Like Kennedy, for example, is like the gym that's attached to the school, and they do everything in those gyms. Battistini is another one that's like that. With some other different offerings in Battistini, but this is kind of the hybrid model for those who did the walkthrough earlier. Director Stanley, one thing we didn't hear from you, like what are the biggest needs of your rec center right now? What are the things that you think about? Obviously one of the main objectives of this board is to help advocate for the rec department to get as much resources as we possibly can to support you guys, and that's what we want to be doing. When you think about your sort of day-to-day work and the people that you serve, what do you think the biggest needs are?
Very specifically, we need someone that can help guide us. And I mean, the assistant director, Cecile, does a phenomenal job, but we need someone to get girls to think more about their own futures. And we talk, she and I talk about it often, but we want to find something that really grabs them and to let them start thinking for their own futures and not just, looking for boyfriends. And I hope that doesn't offend anyone, but I worry about it. I have a daughter. She's now 31 years old. She probably wouldn't want me to tell you. But nonetheless, I know that I stayed in her ear. And before her mother died, she did the same thing. You have your own life. That you don't have to define yourself by somebody else. And so that is a big one to me. I just don't know how to do it because sometimes I'm just too direct. So funding, staff, whatever, that can be done to get to them. And then I think secondly, I think everybody that works in rec should be able to be bilingual. And so I think it would be great if all of us and I mean, I'm 65 years old now, so it's gonna take a long time for me to switch, but
I think
very important.
Councilman Pichardo might be able to.
But that's
Give
very,
you some
very important. And he knows
immersion.
back in the day when I was organizing, I always had one with me who could speak Spanish. And most of the people that came out to support the work that we did were, their first language was Spanish. Remember with Shauna and all of them, and he was always supportive. But you feel somewhat left out and you can't speak to people in the way that they need, because it's not just learning the language, it's also about cultures. And so I just think that every rec director and assistant director should be able to communicate.
Is Cecile bilingual?
Yes, she is.
She is, okay.
Yeah, so I'm always waiting for her to say what they say.
In Director Grace, we haven't really talked about that as much. And most of the centers, is there somebody who is bilingual and on staff in most of the
Most of them,
centers?
but no. But we do have, 4 in our main office staff, that are bilingual, to be able to assist with that. And 2 that are paid to translate, officially.
Yeah,
So it's just a matter of, when positions come up, getting folks to apply, but, I completely agree with Director Stanley, we have to make sure that we are reflective of the community, specifically the language and culture.
Councilman Sanchez?
Just for clarity, Director, you're asking for like trainings or like support from the rec department to be able to learn Spanish?
I'm not, the way I'm saying that, I'm not saying that they're not, because anything we need translated is done quickly. If there's something that we need help with, we have, like you said, the staff in the rec department that can do it. But so I'm talking about more inside the rec, because they're doing everything that they can do. But it would be nice to also start. I used to work at a place years ago, and at one point they would send 2 people each year to go and try to get fluent in Spanish. Obviously, it's not gonna, go that quick, but it was something that worked. And unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to go.
That's awesome. I think it's important that we invest in our own staff as much as possible, especially when it's something so important without the basic line of communication, understanding. It's difficult to preserve our community. So,
And especially if someone comes to a place like a resilience hub or into the rec center and the person who speaks Spanish isn't there. So.
I think that's a good point, because even from my perspective, I'm always like, you have to see it, right? And and when she's not here, and if she goes on vacation, that probably changes the dynamic. Yeah, exactly. It changes the dynamic. I think that's actually a really good point. We
yeah.
have some training and development that's scheduled. But I think that what we can do, you're not the first person to mention language as a barrier, but you're the first director to ask me to train, which I think is actually pretty cool. So, and we do probably have the capacity to do something during our training and development. So, I'll actually be able to look into that.
Thank you, Director. Yes.
Director Stanley,
Rose.
you made a good point, identify the gap with the young girls in your community center. Has there been like a common theme or interest that these girls have that the program should be, given to you guys, or Cecile has identified something that they kind of gravitate towards, or?
So Cecile, again, I'm gonna say she's amazing, and so she can round them up and get them interested in something for a while. But at some point, either they drop out or not drop out. Yeah, drop out would be the right thing. They still are coming here for other reasons.
Right.
Mm.
I think, directed to you, I think that's important that you find their interest, right? Sometimes you can direct them towards something that they're interested in temporarily, but it might not be their passion. So maybe it's a canvas of the kids and find out what really, something like the Met does, what's their interest.
Yeah.
And then develop programs around that. So,
Yeah, well, this is a good segue, I think, to the next part of our conversation, which is programming, basketball and soccer updates. And so, Director, but you mentioned bilingual training, you mentioned girls programming. Is there anything else that you think about on a regular basis that you think the needs of this individual rec center or the whole system?
Considering that we're part of a resilience hub now, I think that there should be some, like food pantry or something, because, there are people that at some point, and to see what some of these kids come in eating every day. And we have I won't name names, but we have a family that sends 5 kids here. And give them $1 or something, and they eat junk food until it's time to eat some of their meals. And, we in the recs give all the recs give out meals. So I just, yeah, just some type of emergency food to help with a family. Now, I know that comes with more, that it has to be done in a certain way, it has to be stored in a certain way, all of that. And I understand why, but the issue is, it would be nice if we, because with
There's
the
a
kids
need.
and the
Yeah.
families, they
Yeah.
start to trust us. What else can we do to help?
Well, I wonder if like the Rhode Community Food Bank, if we can maybe make an introduction there, they might be able to tell us how to start one here, how to maintain it and the needs. I don't know, Director Grace, what those conversations have been like, but clearly there's a need for it. In the tour earlier, we did, as with many of our recreation centers, we did look in the refrigerators downstairs, and it seemed like what does happen is that the schools deliver meals to the rec center every day for dinner, which is served here between 5 and 7, it seems like, of what they said downstairs.
7:30 snacks.
Yeah. So, well, thank you for the presentation, and most of all, thank you for the work that you and your staff do every day. Like I said, went downstairs, there were 40, 50 kids down there that you guys impact their lives every day, and, provide a real, you fulfill a real need in the community for what the community, needs for after school, for, we were talking earlier, there's programming here that goes to 11 o'clock at night. So once the younger kids leave, they actually run a night ball program here.
Give him credit for that.
Yeah.
He allows it to be done. And it's working.
Yeah. So, our rec department is only as strong as the dedicated staff that are a part of it. So we appreciate you and your staff very
Not
much.
one of the states will have.
Yeah. I mean, I'm home snoozing by that time. It's getting old. But thank you. Really, thank you. Does anybody else have any other board members have any questions or comments before?
And I actually just had one comment, because it seems like the programming, the training, and how we are, paying attention to what the community needs is going to be important going forward. Part of that grant that we got, is that we have to actually engage the community and build a community engagement strategies, tell us what programming that the community needs. Coincidentally, our community goals organization coordinator is here tonight, Anastasia Williams, and she's building the strategy as we speak, which is going to ask how we should be providing the program, what programming we should provide, how we should do it, what resources that could be useful, the partners, et cetera. So that's going to be part of this as well. So if we want to have a specific conversation about how we get young girls programming here, we're going to be able to ask and then get the feedback and then be able to build programming you know, around it, as well as any other program or service that, you know, this facility can provide. And that's actually mandatory. It's one of the things I liked about the grant. It's difficult, but it's one of the things that we have to do and we have to report. And the way that we have to gather the information is also interesting as well. It can't be, you know, something from a person that said someone else wanted to do this. We have to get the information ourselves from community members and get it directly. So it's gonna be pretty interesting as we go through that process.
Yeah, that's gonna be a really important
Yeah.
survey that's put together, and data, you know, is one of the things I think we've all noticed as a board that has been sort of lacking in this department before Director Grace came in. I give you a lot of credit for putting data behind, you know, the work. And so I think that survey, that work will be really important to see what it is, because truthfully, you know, and I think also how we publicize it will be really important, because we have to get it out there, I think, with a pretty wide net. So I'm glad that there's a grant that's actually paying for that, which is fantastic. But I do want to recognize Councilman Pichardo, who is with us tonight, not a member of the board, but thank you for joining us and for all your work that you do, you know, in the community. And did you have your hand raised for a second?
So, thank you, Mr. Chairman, for recognizing. I wanted to stop by one specifically because I've been visiting some of the rec centers and see familiar faces, whether I see it on YouTube, try to follow it, but also very passionate about also the services that are in the community. And no stranger to our community has been Alma for many years. And how important the community centers and rec centers, I mean, you have that experience because you worked in the South Side when Sheldon Whitehouse was running for our office, and you got your beginning in politics, right? Well, we were doing our advocacy. And so how critical these centers are. And I've had the opportunity to visit several of them over my goal is to continue to go. I, as a young person, would visit these on my bike, just like any other young person. But in particular, wanted to just commend the work that also has been done by the staff here. I came to visit and saw a lot of the young kids, and to emphasize what he was indicating, training, but not just only because the staff is you know, color or bilingual, but it's also that the culture is emphasized. So that so the young girls or young man can look up to, but also understand, that they can understand them. And I think that, you know, to emphasize that, but also the fact that now with the resilience hub is going to be complementary to the work that the rec center is having. So you know, we also commend the work that you've been doing as an advisory board. I try to catch up on the meetings.
Yeah.
And the director knows that we're always on him because I have one in my district and also Elmo Community Center. In fact, we're having a meeting next week on Monday regarding the Elmo Community Center. But thanks, I just wanted to make sure that.
Thanks for joining us,
you know,
Councilman. We
it's
appreciate it.
important.
And as I said before, our council members put a lot of time and resources into the rec centers and community centers. So we're grateful for all you guys for that, because we need it, as we know.
Yeah, and the last thing is that, you know, about the food. I think you have a neighbor, which is a cat, that also runs a mobile food pantry. So they could you coordinate that with the rec centers.
That's actually interesting.
I think that we have some great resources that they can make that stop here.
They have a mobile?
We visited them a couple of weeks ago. They're open to servicing our communities.
They have a mobile food pantry?
Yeah.
Oh, all right. Right, maybe we should look into that. See if-
Okay.
I actually had a question about that. The food pantry that's around the corner on, it's, I forget the street, that's.
It's one street over.
One street over. Didn't they used to work out of the rec center years ago? And
Before I got here.
Yeah, before you got here,
I did hear
yeah.
about that.
Hmm.
Yeah, so
Okay.
I thought there was a question before they got their own place, so I don't think it's something that has not been done before. You know, it's whether or not we have capacity, like for rules and regulations to do it that way, which means we would just have to bring in a partner to, you know, really
Help institute it.
facilitate that, which,
Mhm.
you know, we know a couple, I've seen, I opened at least 3 in Providence Public Schools, and there's companies and organizations that, you know, can do that. And so.
Yeah, like Mount Pleasant High School, I know has one and
Yeah.
they, I'm not sure if they partnered with anybody or not, but Councilman?
I believe that's with, We Share Hope.
Yes,
Oh, is it? Okay.
yeah, Joanna Corcoran was, the person that we went to for that one. And it was just a great program. They provide a lot of resources. That's actually a fresh food pantry. And not a lot of people know that it's for the students, but the community members can go up to.
Yeah,
And so that's something that could be a possibility as well.
okay. Well, we should explore all those options. Ms. Lafayette, did you have a?
I just had a question along the lines that you're talking about communicating with the community and improving that. What's your relationship like with the school and being able to proactively promote your programming
So
with
the
the students?
school that we're attached to is
Yeah.
amazing. I tell everyone, you know, so my grandson now is 7. So before he was born, I was working here and, I begged and went around and got him into that school. They are amazing. And they're amazing because also they're bilingual. They're amazing because they hold the kids up to a higher standard.
Are they proactively promoting the programming that you do and to
They
other?
share our gym with us.
Yeah,
So their physical education, part is in our gym most of the time. And we get along with everyone there. And, so I'm not sure if I'm answering the question, so if I'm not, rephrase it.
yeah, I
No.
guess I'm picturing, you know, you said that kids can stay in the gym till 3:30 or something. Like, how do we keep maybe those girls that are already here for the after-school program to stay, you know, for rec center programming or to come back for it and make sure the parents of the students are aware of all the additional programming you offer?
We can't lasso them and make them stay.
No, yeah.
Right.
And most of the kids, most of the young ladies that's an elementary school.
Yeah.
And so most of them would not be able to stay without parental, permission. Most of I just don't think families would trust that part, unless we could, you know, meet with them. And that, now that you brought that up, that's a possibility. We should probably try that.
So I have a different answer to that question. We do have rec centers that have after-school programs with PTSD, but it's not a full-fledged citywide program. So Kennedy does it, and Sanger does it,
Yeah.
schools that are connected to, recreation centers. It was interesting. So I met with, Providence Public Schools today to kind of talk about that, because the separation in our organizations, has been evident. We'll talk about it before.
Mhm.
So there's not an official relationship where we have an after-school program, but we are actually going to be changing that.
Good. That's good to hear.
So we're in some preliminary talks about like how that would work, even adjusting some of the times of when recreation centers open, that are connected to be able to work with the after-school program till at least 5 p.m. for the schools that are connected. It's something that's on the radar. We have to get a few things done, you know, operationally, MOUs, et cetera, but it's definitely like in the works to be able to do something like that. And just based off the 2 that we already have and expand the program.
Great.
And and the other thing too is the principal here is Brent Kerman. He does a really good job of kind of like community schooling. I don't think there's an organization here that doesn't know who he is. And that's kind of like the model that you want. There's a theory out there of like the ecosystem of just like schools where, you know, where there's a school in the community, but the school is part of the community. It's like really the thought process of that. And he does a good job of making his school part of the community and not vice versa. That's something I saw 2 years ago or 3 years ago when I met him. So their relationship is good because of that. I think Elmer kind of undersold it. Their communication is really great and their relationship has been great. And that's kind of what you need for a building like this to be successful and expanding on that across the city. So I think if he doesn't know, because he's just been doing it naturally, you actually have a really good relationship with your principal in your school. And it should be, said that you guys do have that.
Well, I do think, we've had the school department in to talk about facilities in the past. Maybe once this kind of advances a little bit more, we can have the school department back in with yourself to give a presentation on what that relationship looks like and how we're going to expand it and sort of formalize it a little bit more. With that said, we will move on to the next agenda item, in the essence of time here. So agenda item number 2 is a discussion on the FY25 budget proposal.
I'm gonna head back down to work.
Thank you again very much for joining us tonight, and really thank you again for all you do, Director. Really appreciated. So the FY25 budget proposal. So we had a conversation at our last meeting around the 3 sort of areas that we thought we'd want to focus on for this budget proposal. One was obviously facilities. As we go around, we've seen there's things like simple, I don't want to call them simple things, but things that can be done probably quicker than some of the basic infrastructure, bigger projects. And that has to do with painting and, flooring and things like that, that are could probably happen a little bit quicker. We also talked about obviously expansion of programming. So obviously we have the soccer league that's coming online, which we'll hear about a little bit later, but from a dollars and cents perspective in the budget, what's it going to take for us to increase that line item so that we can continue to expand? That was another area that we looked at. And then the third area was in the communications and PR side of things. All of these things, none of these things are huge, big ticket items, but they really do make a difference. And it kind of relates back to all the conversations that we've been having as a board. I did have the chance to, speak with the mayor and relay those kind of the big 3 areas that we talked about. As I mentioned before, he's giving his budget address on April 17th. So I did strongly encourage him with Director Grace to focus on those 3 areas as part of his budget for recreation. And so, I'm hopeful that when he gives his budget speech on April 17th, that we will hear some good things for recreation, which we are all, here to advocate for. But I did want to just turn it over to Director Grace, maybe for a minute, just to give us another update on kind of the budget conversations, what's transpiring now. I know there's certain things that you can't reveal yet, but would love to just get a quick briefing from you on your conversation with the administration on presenting the mayor's budget, in particular as it relates to recreation.
Yeah, thank you for that. There are things I obviously can't talk about, it's under review, but we did look for increases in every area that you mentioned. But we also did a good job over the past year of addressing some of the facilities where we haven't seen a lot of the work in that first year. It was really about the planning and going through and working with the council and doing the walkthroughs to see what we need to do. So an example of that was Councilwoman Vargas at Igliozzi. We knew that back wall needed to be painted. That's actually being done now. So we're in the phase now where that money has to be spent because it was ARPA funding and some of the CIP funding. It's actually being out or going out to bid now. So we're going to see a lot of facility improvements. Zuccolo's roof, Vincent's Brown's floor, and a lot of projects. Obviously, we know the ones that we talked about, Baby Lopes here, that we got some outside funding for, that we were able to reallocate some of the ARPA funding to other buildings because of the way we're gonna, use that CPF funding. So we're not in, obviously, we're not fixing every single building. We're not gonna solve every problem, but we're gonna be in a really good place with the amount of investment that we're gonna be putting into some of the rec centers over the next year and the year afterwards. So, and we kind of had that discussion over, of course, the other meetings. I presented the pamphlet and showed, what the investments is gonna be, and now they're actually happening. So this next phase of it is us planning when, how, and, getting through the phase construction portion of it. In terms of programming, that's kind of a double-edged sword, right? So we discussed like the rec calendar, so to speak, where we're busy in the winter and the summer, winter because of basketball season, summer because of summer camps, and kind of like a drop in services in the fall and the spring. There's 2 reasons that was happening. Summer is a lot. There's a lot that, goes on. People are working, 10-hour days in the heat, and it's kind of a way, that's where, the team gets its, takes their vacations and, gets to kind of regenerate before we start the winter. And so in order to increase the programming budget, that means an increase in our seasonal and temporary staff budget as well. So we looked at increasing both to be able to reflect, hey, if we have more programming, that means more people are gonna come and we need more staff to be able to support it, as well as programming, and funding for programming to work with outside organizations as well. We're presented proposals and, organizations that want to work with us all the time. And sometimes it's a matter of the funding or if they're aligned with, either what the mayor or Department of Recreation is doing, or, anything that's happening in that particular rec center. So we ask for more funding, to be able to support some great organizations in the community. And then, the other thing I would say is like really important is like the outside funding that we're gonna be looking to get. I don't control 100% what happens with our budget, and I will never pretend to. So there's an extreme focus on getting outside funding to make sure that if we don't get it in our city budget, that we can still accomplish some of our goals and, increase programming and solve some of the issues facility wise. No matter what. And so we've had a great example of that, recently with that 16 million that we're gonna invest in the 3 centers. But then as we get into the basketball discussion and the soccer discussion, building the sponsorship program and what happened from when I first showed you the draft of it to where we are now. So I'll speak about that in a second, but I think that overall, we looked at almost like a 3.5% increase. And did reflections of, cost of living, materials, et cetera, to be able to ask for a budget that we'd be able to manage and, take a small step to, our goal next year as well. So.
Yeah.
Question for you.
Yeah.
I missed the last meeting. I